The Audi S4 has always been a way of getting a slice of understated performance. It's brought power which really does outgun its rivals, but it delivers it in such a way that it doesn't shout about it. This latest car switches things up a gear because it now uses a diesel engine. But does this new powertrain detract from its overall performance, or does it add to its everyday usability? Let's take a closer look and find out. The exterior of the S4 is a proper balance of performance and understated looks. It's not shouty nor in your face, and there are only a few subtle badges that highlight that this is anything other than a regular A4 estate. You do have the 4 exhaust pipes around the back though, only 2 of them are actually real. The interior of the S4 is really nicely finished, and it's almost a similar theme inside as it is outside. So you've got these really lovely sports quilted seats which feature heating, and also these ones get massage function, which is really cool, and that does come with these sports seats too. Elsewhere you've got a large central infotainment system. Now this isn't the most recent one that we've seen on other Audis, which has the dual screen setup, but this one is perfectly easy to use, and it features wireless CarPlay too, so you don't actually need a cable in order to get CarPlay up on the display. Elsewhere things are really good. You've got this nice sports steering wheel with multifunction controls, paddles behind, and then you've got physical buttons for the heating and ventilation, which is a welcome change from other cars where we've seen this integrated into the screen, and that just makes it more difficult to use, so this is pretty good. The sports seat theme is carried over in the back here, so you've got quilted leather on the bases of the seats, and when it comes to overall spaciousness, it's somewhere in the middle of what you'd expect. So the seats in my position, I'm around 5'10", and my knee room and leg room is what you'd call just about right. Any less and I'd be feeling a little bit tight here, and certainly taller people are going to feel a little bit cramped. That said, there's a decent amount of headroom, so overall I think you would be fine sat here over a long journey. Whoever it is who gets the short straw of sitting in the middle though isn't going to feel quite as comfortable, because you've got a big transmission hump in the middle and you've not really got a lot of space for either of your feet. That said, it's quite a dark and cocooned feeling place, which means that it's probably going to feel quite comfortable and quite snug when you are on the move. You get a generous amount of boot space in the S4 with 505 litres on offer with the seats in place, and this rises to 1,510 litres with the seats folded down. For context, that's more than you'll get in the Mercedes C-Class estate. The S4 uses a diesel for the first time, and it's a punchy thing indeed. It's a turbocharged 3-litre unit with 336 bhp, as well as a mighty 700 Nm of torque. And that's more than you'll get from the tip-top RS4 model. However, despite that power, you're not penalised when it comes to economy. Audi says that combined, you should get just under 40 mpg, while CO2 emissions stand at a very reasonable 166 grams per kilometre. The S4 Avant appears to be quite an appealing package when you read about it on paper. You've got a lot of power, a lot of torque, and quite good economy figures too. Now, in practice, that's much the same. That level of torque that you've got means that you've got a huge amount of power reserves to take advantage of. And when you get into the mid-range, this car really rips. It's really quick, and it feels far stronger actually than those initial figures would lead you to believe. The economy too is pretty good. I've found on longer runs with this car that I've been getting about 38 mpg, which is around about Audi's claimed figures, and I think on an even longer run you could see over 40, so that does mean that you're going to get a really decent range from a full tank of fuel. The ride on this car is a little bit choppy. This sits on standard springs, and you'd have to move up to Vorsprung specification in order to get the active air suspension. Now that's something that I really do think could be worthwhile, as on smaller roads this car is a little bit firm, and that does mean that you get quite a lot of those lumps and bumps transferred into the cabin. The steering that you've got here is pretty much classic Audi. It's not all that feelsome, but it's more than direct enough for you to put the car as and where you need it. The engine is super strong, and it's got a deep well of power reserves to take advantage of, as I've already mentioned. However, the real unravelling of this car is the gearbox, and this is something that we've found in a lot of Audi models at the moment, particularly diesel ones. Now, Audi hasn't come out and said why this is happening, but we have a sneaking suspicion it's something to do with emissions regulations and being able to bring down emissions by putting in some kind of delay on the gearbox. What it means is, when you want to get on the power, it really doesn't arrive at anywhere close to the point where you press the throttle. So hard down, yep, there it goes. It's like driving an old single large turbocharged car from the 80s or 90s. It's just quite incredible that it's still able to do that. Now, in this point in most cars, I would usually say that you'd leave the gearbox in automatic mode, and most of the time it sorts itself out. In this car, you really do have to take advantage of the paddles if you're going to want to make quick progress on country roads, because you have to take ownership of those gears in order to avoid that delay. On the motorway too, that does mean that when you want to overtake or even just nip out and into a lane, it takes a little bit of planning, it takes a little bit of thought in order to put your throttle down and wait for the power to arrive. When the power does arrive, there's loads of it and it's fantastic, but that's not something that we'd expect from a brand new car. That said, it's on the motorway where this car feels really at home. This S4 is a car that you feel has been designed specifically for the Autobahn in Germany, and at motorway speeds it sits and it floats just beautifully. Again, that firm ride does mean that at slow speeds it's a little bit chunky, but if you're looking for a car to do big miles and to sit comfortably at the national speed limit on the motorway, then the S4 is definitely the car for the job. I would say in fact that when you've got it all spooled up and it's really pulling on song, this car feels quicker than the RS4 that sits at the top of the Audi RS range. The difference between the two is that that low end response is so much sharper in the petrol powered RS4, and that makes it a little bit more rewarding to drive. However, between the two, the composure is still very good at speed. The brakes too are sharp and offer decent performance, and it's all around a good package that just feels like it's ever so slightly missed the top spot, and it's basically all around that gearbox. That gearbox issue is particularly noticeable as well when you are exiting a roundabout, which is one of the areas where you really don't want too much lag, and what can happen is you go for some throttle, you want to pull out into the roundabout, you don't get any, the car rolls forward momentarily, so you're left stranded in the middle of a roundabout, and then all of a sudden power comes in and you're away. But it shouldn't have to be like that. I really do think that if you hadn't experienced other Audi models with this issue, you might think that there's a problem with the car. It's something that the company really needs to address, and it is doing that through its petrol and hybrid models, which don't seem to suffer the same issue. But diesel is such a huge seller for the company, lots of people still need diesel cars, that this needs to be sorted pretty sharply. The Audi S4 is so close to being the perfect combination of performance and practicality. That new diesel engine really does give it a huge reserve of power and torque to lean on, and it also means that you're getting quite good economy figures too. However, it does come unraveled slightly when you think about that gearbox, which really does detract from the overall experience of driving this car. However, if you can look past that, this is one seriously accomplished machine, and it's one which is well worth considering. Thank you for watching this motors.co.uk new car review on the Audi S4 Avant. Now please feel free to leave us a comment below and let us know what you think of this car. Do you think a diesel engine can be fitted in a performance vehicle? Also, while you're here, please remember to like this video and subscribe to the motors.co.uk YouTube channel, hitting that bell icon so you get a notification each time we upload a new video.